Hi, I am Dr. Majumdar, Senior Advisor, Sports Science, Education and Research, which is Center of Excellence in Sports Science and Research, IIT Madras. Well, today we will talk on ATP and energy system. As all of you know that the energy basically derived in the human body in terms of ATP or adenosine triphosphate. So how it is being evolved, what are the system. So while discussing throughout this process the learning objective, we will explain the role of ATP as an universal energy currency. We will also discuss about the three primary energy system and their characteristics. We will try to figure it out to understand that energy system integration during different type of exercise, starting from high intensity exercise, then low and medium intensity exercise, and the slow long distance activities. We will also apply our knowledge, which is very important for scheduling the training program, which is much more applied, just to understand, just to make the periodized cycle and make the training program effective. Then we need to understand these energy system, that basically this energy system is the foundation of planning the periodized cycle in training. So first we will talk about the energy system. We will see the energy system overview. First will come the phosphagen system, which is ATP creatine phosphate system. Then we will come to anaerobic glycolytic system, where glucose, glycogen to glucose through the process of breakdown, which is known as lysis. As the glucose is breaking down, the process is called glycolysis. And the glycolytic system, which is absolutely both the system phosphagen and glycolytic system, there is no oxygen required, that is why it is called anaerobic system. And then we will also discuss about the aerobic system, where liver and muscle glycogen breaks down to glucose to pyruvic acid, when pyruvic acid then converted to acetyl CoA, then enter into the TCA cycle and generate ATP oxidatively inside the mitochondria through electron transport chain. We also will have the integration and application of these three systems, and then based on that definitely we have the conclusion about the whole session. Now, why energy matters in exercise? Because you know, for vehicle, to run the vehicle you require the petrol or gas. Similarly, for any of the movement, movement is possible by the muscle, and because the muscle is attached with the bone, by flexion extension we can move, and for this muscular contraction we require the energy. So we will try to understand the energy demand underpin all form of exercise, starting from low slow distance run, fast interval, and all the different type of activities. The energy matters during exercise. If you have more energy stores inside the muscle, like if you have a more creatine phosphate store inside the muscle, then the faster movement you can continue for prolonged period of time. So it directly linked to your performance anaerobic capacity or performance capacity. Vis-a-vis if your liver and muscle glycogen have more store in liver glycogen, then definitely you can perform better in endurance sports. Well, when you are running out of energy, then you can land up with the fatigue. Fatigue, of course, there are two types. One is the central fatigue and the peripheral fatigue. The peripheral fatigue is it is the muscular fatigue, because the ATP is required for muscle contraction, because in the myosin head the ATP stays, which causes the actomyosin complex formation during sliding filament theory. The activation and shortening cycle depend on that ATP, which is attached with the myosin head, which act on the when it splits to ADP, PI and energy, that energy allow actin to slide over the myosin and shortening of the sarcomere. So, if you your ATP store is depleted, then it directly act on the muscle contraction. Therefore, the speed of contraction would be decreased. Similarly, ATP is also required for sarcoplasmic reticulum when the calcium is released. During relaxation, the calcium need to reuptake back to sarcoplasmic reticulum, that is also energy dependent. So, the energy is required even for different pump and different active pump in the cell, in the cellular active pump. So, ATP, when you are down with the energy, then definitely you land up with the fatigue. Just to understand the bioenergetics, there are some reaction where the energy is added to the reactant, which is called endergonic reaction. There are some reaction which produce ATP, which is called exergonic reaction. There are some reaction that are linked with the liberation of free energy in one reaction, followed by the second reaction to initiate and the second reaction to drive, which is called coupled reaction. And the bioenergetic is concerned with the transfer of energy from the foodstuff into the biologically usable form. So, ATP hydrolysis or coupled reaction, which adenosine triphosphate, it splits off to adenosine diphosphate and phosphate, and as a result the free energy is liberating out. As I have mentioned, that the energy powers the cross-bridge cycle, which is actomyosin complex formation and the shortening cycle. The different ion pump also actively involved for actively different active transport process is also driven by ATP, and the different biosynthesis, like in glycolytic pathway there are investment phase of ATP, that is the first 2 or 3 reactions in the glycolytic where the energy is required to drive it forward. So, these biosynthetic process also the ATP initiates. So, you can see how the ATP there is a cycle, the green one, the blue one is the ATP produced and the green one is ATP used. So, ATP, there are some reactions, as I told you, the endergonic and exergonic reaction, which is depicted in this table. We have a very limited store of ATP in our human body. That human body of 70 kg body weight with 40 to 50 grams ATP present in 70 kg body weight person with 12% body fat, which is equivalent to around 25 millimole per kg ATP, which can be stored. And the amount of creatine is slightly higher than ATP, just in the magnitude of almost 3 times compared to ATP store. ATP is 40 to 50, whereas the creatine store is around 120 grams But again this store is relatively small. So, human body only can use this store for high sprinting activity lasting for 10 to 12 seconds. So, ATP, how ATP looks like? There is a adenine, adenosine. So, adenosine attached with a ribose, which is a 5 carbon sugar, and the 3 phosphate is attached to the ribose. Adenine comes from the nucleotide pool. So, adenine attached with the ribose, which is a again 5 carbon compound, and 3 phosphate is attached with that, is the adenosine triphosphate, which is the immediate store of energy. And the stores are small, as I have already mentioned. The ATP stores are small compared to creatine store. Creatine store is relatively higher than ATP. ATP store is around 40 to 50 grams, and creatine store around 120 gram. Now, we will go to and see the energy system overview. So, there are 3 systems: ATP creatine phosphate system. Then this system also for the coaching language I call it the sprint system, which is responsible for high intensity speed work, the explosive work, the explosive action, muscular action. The anaerobic glycolytic system follows, which is the glycolytic system is also known as the lactic acid system, and this anaerobic glycolytic system, the duration is around 40 to 45 second peak duration. And then comes to aerobic system, which is endurance system, the oxidative system. So in the coaching language, we first one, the ATP CP, we call it the sprint system. Anaerobic glycolytic system, which we call it speed endurance system, and aerobic oxidative system is called endurance. Now, when we see that in a ultra performance less than 10 second duration, then the muscle power is generating by using phosphocreatine, and muscle power depend on the fiber type distribution and the recruitment of the fiber. The fiber distribution and recruitment is also depend on the motivation and arousal. If you are optimally motivated and your arousal level is optimum, then the fiber distribution and recruitment would be optimum, and you can generate more power. And the power also depend on skill and technique, because if you have a proper skill and proper technique, which you can achieve through practice, and the muscle power generating using that skill and technique, that can optimize your performance in high intensity explosive action, which is shown like jumping or sprinting. Then comes to short term performance from 10 second to 3 minute or 180 second. Then both glycolytic system, anaerobic glycolytic system, and the sprint system or the ATP-CP system, both are giving the energy. And if the aerobic, if the distance is more, the duration is more, then definitely aerobic reliance would be higher. And if the distance is short and high intensity activity for short duration of 10 seconds, definitely the reliance of anaerobic would be much more prominent than aerobic. So here you can see that ATP splits off to ADP, PI and energy, and this the enzyme which is responsible for the breakdown of ATP is called ATPase, and which splits the phosphate out of 3 phosphate and become the adenosine diphosphate. Then at the same time, as it is a coupled reaction, at the same time once the ADP is more, then the phosphocreatine under the influence of creatine kinase, the enzyme, the phosphocreatine breaks down to creatine and phosphate. That phosphate adhere to adenosine diphosphate and forming triphosphate, and this process is called the rephosphorylation of ADP to ATP. The glycolytic system, we can see here the glucose can be broken down to one is glucose 6-phosphate by spending the energy, and the enzyme is hexokinase. So glucose 6-phosphate, fructose 6-phosphate, fructose 1,6-diphosphate. Then this 6-phosphate or the 6 carbon is broken down to 3 carbon, that is a 2-glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate and 3-phosphoglyceraldehyde, then 1,3-phosphoglycerate, then 3-phosphoglycerate, then 2-phosphoglycerate, then phosphoenol pyruvate, enol pyruvate and pyruvate. In the entire process, in the initially the 2 ATP is invested for the first 3 steps of glycolysis, and in the remaining part in from 6 and 7, from 7 and 10 the ATP is produced. So 4 ATP is the net 4 ATP is produced and 2 ATP is invested. So in the glycolytic pathway the net gain of ATP is 2 molecule, and of course we also get the NAD, which is the nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. The NAD become the NADH plus H plus, and this 2 NAD is also developed through glycolytic pathway. So 2 NAD and 2 ATP is the turnover in the process of glycolysis. So when we talk about the 3 system, there is 3 system. You can see the peak here is the peak 10 second, then but the influence of ATP-CP still lies up to 1 minute. Up to 1 minute there is some portion is coming out of from ATP-CP system, followed by glycolytic system, which is present in the other color, where you can see that that the 40 to 50 second it is a very dense, and up to 2 minutes the influence of anaerobic glycolytic system is still prevailing, and then it takes over the oxidative system. What I try to impress upon you is all these 3 systems never work in isolation, they all work together depending on what intensity and duration of activities, the particular system becoming the predominant source of energy. In the aerobic process, you can see, as I talked about the intensity base, when the intensity is low, that time the plasma free fatty acid is the better fuel for energy, and once the intensity is further going to this from 25% of relative VO2 max, the maximum oxygen uptake, when you are working with 25% of your VO2 max, your major energy is driven from fat oxidation, and when you are going for the higher aerobic side from 40 to 65%, then you can see that intramuscular triglyceride is breakdown happen, and this intramuscular triglyceride is giving you the energy. Apart from the energy is driven from plasma free fatty acid, and but when you are going with a higher intensity of higher aerobic intensity, then the plasma glucose is the better fuel. So the breakdown of or the aerobic oxidation is happening when you are going for higher aerobic intensity workout. So what I try to again tell you that when the intensity is low, then the fat would be a preferred fuel, and when you are doing for the higher intensity in the aerobic limit, then the liver and muscle glycogen is the better fuel for giving you the energy. energy continuum concept. When we talk about all system contribute simultaneously, dominance shift from intensity and duration, as I have already mentioned. Short high intensity ATP CP system or ATP phosphocreatine system is the system which is predominant, and long low intensity will be the aerobic system, and in between, if the intensity is high and the duration is 40 to 45 seconds, then the anaerobic glycolytic system is the predominant energy source, or which is also called lactic acid system. So, here we can see the energy and where the intensity and duration. So, as I have mentioned, if it is a 10-second duration, then the ATP PCR system is the strongest system which gives you the energy. The fuel comes from PCR store, oxygen is not available, recovery is 2 to 3 minutes, which is very important, which for planning the training program. The byproduct is ADP and phosphate, adenosine diphosphate and phosphate, and this particular energy system location is cytoplasm of the cell. The example of this particular activity is 100 meter sprint, weightlifting, any of the explosive jumps, shot put, then ADP, PCR is phosphocreatine adhere with the ADP, leaves the creatine which attach with the ADP to forming ATP and creatine, and the enzyme is creatine kinase, as I have mentioned, and it is 1:1 ATP yield. So, the second system is 10 seconds to 2 minutes, the 75 to 95% of the maximum ability or the VO2 max. Then the anaerobic glycolytic system, also called the lactic acid system, duration is 10 seconds to 2 minutes, fuel, glycogen and glucose. Oxygen is not required. Recovery, that is why it is anaerobic. Recovery is 15 to 30 minutes, which is a long recovery. In fact, for complete regeneration of the store, you require to wait for 15 to 30 minutes. Byproduct is lactate. Location is again cytoplasm. Example is 400 meter run, which is a classical example of speed endurance. The 200 meter swimming, basketball and sprint, then tennis rally, all the duration is around 12 to 20 seconds. So, definitely the reliance of lactic acid system or the anaerobic glycolytic system is much more prominent. The third system, as I have mentioned, is a oxidative system. The duration is 2 minutes, fuel is carbohydrate and fat, oxygen required, recovery is ongoing, byproduct is carbon dioxide and water. Location is obviously mitochondria, mitochondrial membrane, inside the mitochondrial membrane, Christie. Then example is marathon, cycling, then distance, swim, then soccer match. So, here the glucose and fat breakdown do occur, carbon dioxide and H2 and water is produced. Krebs cycle enzyme, in the process we generate around 32 molecule of ATP. In book we can even see 36 to 38 molecule of ATP per glucose molecule breakdown. Here there are three systems which is clearly distinguishedly shown here. The fuel source, circulating nutrient. The first is the aerobic circulating nutrient, oxygen as a catalyst. Then the body's ability to process oxygen is the aerobic long term. Then byproduct is ATP, CO2 and H2O. intensity of exercise low to moderate, higher intensity of effort lasting longer than 2 minutes, significant overlap with the anaerobic system at higher intensity for event longer than 2 minutes. Then the anaerobic short term and anaerobic immediate. Anaerobic short term is basically an anaerobic lactacid. Anaerobic short term is anaerobic lactacid, where the lactic acid is produced, glycogen stored, carbohydrate in the muscle at 100% intensity 10 seconds to 2 minutes. The limiting factor at maximum intensity is to build up with the glycogen store. ATP and lactic acid is produced, high to very high for longer than 10 seconds up to 2 to 2.5 minute at maximum intensity. The anaerobic lactate is the short duration where the lactacid duration it is around 15 seconds, stored ATP and CP up to 10 seconds, ATP and creatine, then very high intensity explosive movement up to 10 seconds unless stores have time to replenish. Here when we talk about the energy system, the recovery of fuel store after use, the aerobic it is a long distance and it requires 6 to 24 hours for full recovery, and the higher intensity it requires 24 to 36 hours. And for anaerobic short term, that is the glycolytic system and lactic acid system, the lactic acid removal 25% in 10 minutes, 50% in 25 minutes and 100% in 75 minutes. And that is why the limbering down is very important important process in exercise training, which flush the lactic acid out of the muscle and facilitate your recovery. Replenishment of glycogen following continuous high intensity endurance activity 60% in 10 hours and 100% in 48 hours. And replenishment of glycogen following immediate activity 40% in 2 hours and 55% in again 2 hours and 100% in 24 hours. Whereas anaerobic lactate 50% replenished in 30 seconds to 2 minutes and complete restoration if resting. So, the determinant of system use, one is exercise intensity and duration. In high intensity, obviously we require the ATP CP system and the high intensity, but the duration is 40 second to 50 second or less than 1 minute, then we the energy comes from anaerobic glycolytic system. So, it depend the determinant of system use is also depend on the oxygen availability. When the oxygen is available, then the muscle and liver glycogen, then glycogen breaks down to glucose. Glucose through the process of glycolysis it form pyruvate, and the pyruvic acid then enter into the TCA cycle by forming the acetyl CoA. Then it in a cyclical process of TCA cycle we gets energy. So, that depend on the oxygen availability. The substrate store, if the glycogen and fat store is proper, then aerobic oxidation would be the better system in long slow distance running. Of course, training and nutritional status of the athlete is very important, because training can enhance the VO2 max or aerobic endurance. Training can enhance the store of training can enhance even to tolerate the lactic acid, lactate tolerance we call it in the training language. Training can also important for improving power. even the nutritional status is also important. If over the period of time, if your glycogen is glycogen breakdown happen, and during and the recuperation is under threat, then definitely you cannot sustain the aerobic activity in a subsequent day's training program. So you need to recuperate glycogen. So your nutritional status is a cause of concern for the activity during long slow distance running.